So we are recording, and for those folks that are not able to join us today, they'll be able to watch the recording. Um, First up on our agenda, we have Sarah Beebe from Disability Rights, and she's going to talk about transition planning for students in alternative education programs. So Sarah, thanks for joining us. She's joining us from Houston, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I can't tell you how appreciative I am for your time today to talk about a subject that I think really doesn't get enough attention. And so I'm going to share my screen, share the PowerPoint that I have for y'all. Let me get it in presenter mode. There we go. So yeah, we're going to talk about school reentry for students returning from alternative education programs. And when we use the term alternative education programs, that really encompasses a number of different programs, including disciplinary alternative education programs, juvenile justice alternative education programs, and youth returning from juvenile facilities. And so just to start off, I want to make sure everybody knows who Disability Rights Texas is. I believe most of you are familiar with us, but if you're not, we are the federally designated protection and advocacy agency in the state of Texas for people with disabilities. So we're a nonprofit that mainly receives funding from the federal government, along with private foundations and grants. And we help people with disabilities understand and exercise their rights under the law so that we can ensure they have full and equal participation in our society. And we work on a variety of different issues. Education is just one of those. We have a number of attorneys and advocates across the state who provide assistance with all types of disability discrimination and rights violations in the areas of employment, transportation. We do Medicaid fair hearings. We work on ensuring that individuals who are in our state institutions don't experience abuse. So, you know, we're kind of like free civil legal rights or civil legal aid for people with disabilities in the state. So that's who we are. I've been with Disability Rights Texas now for 15 years, and I have had the privilege of being the supervising attorney of an education advocacy program that assists exclusively youth who have juvenile justice involvement for the past 9 years. And so it was about 10 years ago that Disability Rights Texas established a very formal relationship with the Harris County Juvenile Probation Department here in Houston and began providing education advocacy services to their youth. And this relationship made a lot of sense because the research shows that approximately 70% of youth in the juvenile justice system have a disability. There's just extreme overrepresentation of our youth with disabilities in that system. So they reached out to us and said, hey, we have a lot of youth with disabilities, and we don't know that we really understand what their rights are when it comes to their education, but we know that if they're not receiving appropriate education services, they're just going to cycle right back to us. So what can we do? And so we established this formal relationship with them where they make referrals to us to say, hey, will you help us resolve education concerns that our youth are having? And in that time, we've served nearly 3,000 youth and have achieved a 94% rate of non-recidivism, meaning that youth who we have helped have not returned to the juvenile justice system within a year of release, just showing that there is just a real connection between between education and success in the juvenile justice system, and not having a recidivism incident. So we're really proud and excited about the work that we do, but that is what brought us to begin to understand some of the challenges that our youth have when they are trying to return to schools from the juvenile justice system, as well as from those other alternative education programs I mentioned at the beginning. And so this is just a little overview to help us understand, how do we get to school reentry, right? What kind of causes it? What are some of the problems that our youth experience? Just what does it look like? And so discretionary removals are the highest percentage of the types of removals that our youth experience. It's mainly discretionary removals over mandatory removals in our state. And unfortunately, students who experience a discretionary removal from school are 3 times more likely to then come in contact with the juvenile justice system. Students with disabilities are 2 times more likely to experience these discretionary removals, putting them at even greater risk of arrest and juvenile involvement. Once a student is arrested, and they are brought into a juvenile facility, very often they are withdrawn from their home school district. And this really varies across the state because here in Harris County, they operate their own charter school. That's true in Dallas as well. Across most of the rest of the state, the school district that is within the zone of where the juvenile detention facility or post-adjudication facility is located is the school district that's likely to serve the youth. That may be the district that the youth was attending before their arrest. But very often students get withdrawn from the school district they were attending and re-enrolled in another school district while they're in the juvenile facility. So when they come out, they have to re-enroll in school. Unfortunately, our national statistics show us that about 2/3 of youth who are involved in the juvenile justice system who are leaving a juvenile facility don't return to school. That's a significant portion of those youth. There are many reasons for that, but some of the reasons have to do with youth experiencing enrollment issues when they attempt to return to their schools. I could go on and tell you stories for days of all the things that, we hear from schools about why they're telling youth they can't come back. It ranges anywhere from you need to reproduce documentation that the school already has on file to you're too old to be here, which when we're talking about juveniles, we know isn't true because you can be up to 21 years old and still enroll in public school. So there's lots of reasons that schools give students for not allowing them to return, but it all really boils down to a lot of stigma that's attached to our youth who have justice involvement. And so the other big challenge that our youth experience is that when they come back, their credits, the work that they were doing while they were in the juvenile facility doesn't necessarily line up with what they're now going to be asked to do back at their traditional home campus. Our juvenile facilities are often, kind of limited in what curriculum they can provide, what courses they can provide. And so there could be a big disconnect between what a youth is, which courses they're able to take while they're in a juvenile facility. The same can be true for DAPs and JJAPs. And then when they get back to their home campus, they may be told, oh, it's the middle of the semester and you haven't taken these courses, or we can't align your courses, so you're just not going to get credit. Well, you can imagine what that might do to the motivation of our youth who are already struggling, being told, sure, come for the rest of the semester, but you're not going to get credit. Most of our youth are not excited about that idea. And so that will, cause them to maybe leave or, try to consider other options like getting a GED or something like that. So that's kind of the process for how we get to school reentry, particularly for our justice involved youth. There's a law on the books that hopefully everybody's aware of that requires school districts to develop personalized transition plans for our youth who are returning to school from juvenile facilities, as well as DAPs and JJAPs. And I have listed on the screen those who are required to participate in that planning process. I also have, kind of who should participate. Sadly, special education and 504 coordinators got left off the list of who should be required to participate if the youth is already receiving disability services, but absolutely, we believe that those individuals should be part of the process. Parents and guardians as well, and the youth themselves are also a great resource for information, so they should be included too. And then the plan has to include the best educational placement for the youth. And I emphasize educational placement because the other thing that we see in this work is that a lot of schools maybe mistake this for disciplinary placement. So the youth returning from a juvenile facility and the school says, oh, you've got to go to the DAP. That may all be well and good. It may align with, the rules in the code of conduct, but we really are supposed to be, when we're doing transition planning, figuring out what's the best educational placement, meaning, does this student need credit recovery? Are they going to be fine just in the general ed setting? Do we need to re-examine, if they're going to need some additional academic supports, things like that. And then the plan can include recommendations for all kinds of supports and services, counseling, behavioral management, those academic supports, and then it can also include a regular review, which we at Disability Rights Texas definitely recommend. It's a shame to put a plan in place and then not review it to see if the student's actually making progress with the plan that was put in place. So as part of the work that we do through the program that I operate at Disability Rights Texas, is that we established a school reentry work group many years ago that is a consortium of a number of different organizations, community-based organizations, as well as local level, state level organizations, city level organizations, I should say. And our whole purpose is to try to remove the barriers our youth experience to school reentry, because we want to see them have those improved education outcomes in an effort to prevent their recidivism. So we have been looking at this issue for a number of years, and we decided we really needed to better understand what's happening, particularly for our youth who are coming back to campuses. What's happening with the reentry process? Are school districts generally developing these plans? Are kids making it back to their campuses? There's just no real requirement to keep data on the movement of students between all these systems. And so we thought we would see what information do school districts already have. So we sent out public information requests to 130 school districts across the state. We got 90 responses back, and on this screen is the list of things that we asked for. We wanted to know the number of youth school districts had placed at the DAP or the JJAP within a year time span, a school year. We wanted to know, of those students that were placed, how many actually enrolled at the program they'd been assigned to. For the students who had completed those placements, how many of them re-enrolled in school, and for how many of those students was a transition plan developed, and then were those transition plans being reviewed. The responses we got were really fascinating, and we have put them in a report that actually has been sent to all 130 of those school districts and all of the school districts in Harris County, since our work group is based in Harris County. But I believe that information has been shared as a part of this meeting, and if not, it's available on the Disability Rights Texas website. And I highly recommend everybody look at it. It's really just some very interesting information. But some of the findings were that 51% of school districts are not developing transition plans when youth return. We also found that 30% of school districts aren't tracking the number of students who are moving between their zoned campus and the alternative school, or coming back from the alternative school into their regular campus. And 33% of those school districts that are developing transition plans aren't conducting reviews. So essentially the plan's being put in place, but nobody's really watching to see, is this plan actually working for this youth? And so, we came up with a bunch of recommendations based on what we found as part of this report. And this was a year-long undertaking where we talked to a lot of districts. We worked with them on trying to obtain the data and explained what we were looking for, and really had a chance to educate along the way, right, about what are transition plans, because a lot of school districts, unfortunately, when they hear that, think of special education transition planning, which is for our youth who are 14 years old or older and receiving special education services. This is different, and in truth, I wish the law would call it school reentry planning and not transition planning, so we didn't have that confusion. But a lot of districts just didn't know what it was, so we would share with them, hey, here it is. The recommendations we made based on our findings in this report were that it would be really a benefit to everyone, especially school districts, to keep readily accessible data. A lot of the times when we asked for the information I listed on the other screen, school districts would say, well, we can figure it out, but we don't really have like running data or easily accessible data that we can just tap into. Like, X many youth were sent to the DAP, X many youth actually enrolled there, this many were completed their placement and are coming back. School districts just couldn't easily put their hands on that data, which means that we've got a lot of districts out there who have no idea if they're losing youth in this transition, right? They don't know if youth are actually making it to the DAP, and if they're not, why not? And if they are coming back. And so we just think that would be really beneficial to school districts who are missing out on, having those youth remain in school and remain in their school districts. Be good for them to track that information. We also, of course, recommend holding meetings to develop the transition plans. And we really want that to include parents and the students themselves. We think that, of course, they have a lot of information that could be useful in that process. Sadly, the law does not currently require that parents and students actually participate in a transition planning process, but we absolutely believe that that is a best practice. We also think engaging in trainings on this topic is a best practice, and I'll share with you that Region 4 Education Service Center just this past June engaged in a 2-day school reentry training, professional development training that really got into what are some of the best ways to conduct transition planning? And a lot of their training emphasized having circles of support in order to welcome students back to campus after they've been gone for a while, and really make them feel included so that they will re-engage with school and not feel disconnected or just have that sort of difficulty kind of making that change from a really structured small environment back to their large middle and high schools where they may not even know anyone. We've had youth who have completed a disciplinary placement while they were in middle school, and then come back in the middle of their first semester of their freshman year and weren't there at the beginning of the school year, so they don't know anybody. They don't know their counselors, they don't know their teachers, they may not know most of their students. That transition can be really, really challenging. And so we also recommend that school districts use a transition planning tool. And so when we provided this policy report to school districts, we didn't want to just say, hey, here's what we were interested in trying to figure out, and here's what we found, and here are our recommendations. We actually developed a school reentry plan or transition plan template that school districts can use to help them engage in this process. And so I believe that's another tool that should be provided to you through this webinar. And if not, of course, I'm happy for folks to reach out to me directly to get a copy of it. We have a fillable PDF version. We also have a Word version in case school districts want to make modifications to the form. But we're hopeful that this is a tool that will help school districts meet all of the legal requirements for transition planning, as well as engage in best practices transition planning so that they and the youth can be really successful. Because there's no doubt from our experience that youth who don't successfully reenter school are much, much, much more likely to wind back up in the juvenile justice system and keep cycling back through. So that's what I have for you this afternoon. I'm again so appreciative of the time with you all today, and I'm happy for people to reach out to me if they have questions or want any of the information I've shared or referenced. Also happy to give trainings to education service centers, to school districts. If anybody would like us to, don't hesitate. We're happy to share. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And we did have a question. Would you be able to share that deck with me and then I can post it on the webpage, or would you like people just to email you individually?
Yeah, well, let me make sure that you have everything, Stephanie, and
Okay.
share it out to everyone, because I would be happy for everybody to have the PowerPoint, our policy,
Perfect.
all of it.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, if you can just email that to me, that would be perfect. And then what we'll do is upload it and it'll be posted to the TA Special Education webinar and newsletter site. Just the same place where you guys went to log on today to access this webinar. So thanks, Sarah.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, guys, next up, we on the agenda, it was collaborative and flexible grouping, and we are actually pushing that one until January 23rd. So that item will be covered on January 23rd. So we're going to move on, and we are going to hear from our fabulous folks at ESC 10. We have Dr. April Estrada and we have Alicia Len, and they're going to talk about empowering ECSE special educators to improve student outcomes grant. So I will turn it over to you, ladies.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Mouthful.
Stephanie. Thank you so much for having us. We at Region 10, we have the wonderful opportunity to be able to bring a grant opportunity to our school districts and our other ESCs with an anticipation to be able to enhance outcomes, inclusion and behavior in some of those areas. And so you guys have started hearing a little bit about this. through our ECSC representatives. Terry Breeden has been working with those groups, and our ESC directors have been given a little bit of information as we've been preliminary working on this. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia Lynn. She's our coordinator over this group to talk about it. And Terry Breeden's also here with us from TEA. She's our wonderful contact with the ECSC program. And so we have some information and hope that we can get this thing going soon and get you guys some of the funds that we know that you need to serve your students. So Alicia?
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, yes. Good afternoon. As April said, I am Alicia Lynn with Region 10 ESC, and I'd like to welcome you to the overview of our mouthful that Stephanie just saw, the Empowering Early Childhood Special Education, ECSE, Educators to Improve Student Outcomes grant. We are excited to announce this grant, which allows for educational agencies, LEAs, and our ESCs to apply for one-time funding in accordance with allowable expenditures associated with the IDEA for improving ECSE program outcomes. The Empowering ECSE Educators to Improve Student Outcomes grant, it will provide funding support for training and certification for ECSE professionals during this 24-25 school year. When we look at the grant, there are two main focus areas for the Empowering ECSE Educators. We are going to focus on one, professional development, which will focus on behavior management and inclusive opportunities. And the second part of that is dual certification in the areas of special and general education. LEAs have the flexibility to apply for grant funds in either one or both of these areas. While the application for ESCs, it's going to be solely focused on requesting funds to provide professional development. Trainings will focus on behavior management and inclusive opportunities and will increase our ECSE educators' ability to improve student outcomes for children with disabilities ages 3 through 5, but not in kindergarten. LEAs can also apply for funding through the program to support our pre-kindergarten teachers with dual certification in special education and general education. The grant application will open next Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, and it will close on Friday, March 7th, 2025. Based on the level of interest and the availability of any remaining funds, there may be an opportunity to accept additional applications in a second year. Applicants who are not awarded in the first year, we encourage you to reapply if additional funding cycles are indeed announced. So based on those focus areas that we just discussed, the professional development and dual certification, the expected outcomes for this grant are 1, improved student outcomes, 2, enhanced educator skills, 3, increased inclusive opportunities for our little ones, and 4, improved behavior management. So now let's look at the application process. First, we are going to review eligibility. So the first step is to confirm that your LEA or ESC qualifies for the grant. This is a critical starting point to ensure that you do meet the basic requirements of the grant. Next, once the eligibility is confirmed, you're going to gather all the necessary documentation, including your plans for how the funds will be used. This will ensure a smooth submission process. Applications must be submitted through our designated portal, which I will share shortly, and be sure to complete all of the required sections to avoid any delays in processing. After your submission, applications will go through a review process. Responses will be provided once the review is complete. For those who are awarded, notification letters will be sent to LEAs starting May 1st, 2025. This marks the beginning of the funding process and when funds may begin to be expended. Awarded funds must be expended by the end of the grant, which is August 31st, 2025. with reimbursement requests submitted in alignment with this timeline. Ensure that all expenditures comply with the grant requirements in order to qualify for reimbursement. After spending the funds, you'll need to submit proof of payment and a detailed general ledger to us at Region 10 by August 31st, 2025. And lastly, we at Region 10 will reimburse. Reimbursement will be provided within 45 days of receiving your documentation. That allows for timely and efficient closeout to our whole process for this grant. For more detailed information about the Empowering ECSE Educators to Improve Student Outcomes grant, we invite you to visit our dedicated grant landing page. I will show you that very quickly. So this is the landing page, and it serves as a central resource for everything that you need to know about the grant. You can email our team, and there's an FAQ as well as a promotional flyer and a grant overview and who is eligible to apply. If you require assistance when completing your application, we prepared that comprehensive frequently asked questions, or the FAQ document, on the website I just showed you. This resource addresses common inquiries, and it provides additional guidance to really just ensure a smooth and successful application process for you. The FAQ can be easily accessed on that grant application landing page. For additional support, we are here to support you with any questions or concerns you may have. You can reach us via this email address, empoweringecse@region10.org, or join us during our dedicated virtual office hours for personalized assistance with the grant process. Our goal is really to provide support and ensure that your experience is as seamless and successful as possible. That is all I have. So thank you for your time today, and we look forward to working with you to support success of this grant and improve our student outcomes together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I appreciate that. We did have a question. Will this deck be able to be shared? Is that something that you can do? So if
Absolutely.
if either you or Dr. Estrada could email that to me, then again, we can upload it and it will be posted on the TEA SPED webinar and newsletter page. So folks can go there to access it. Thank you. Appreciate it,
You're
guys.
welcome.
All right, moving on. Next, we are going to have two of our TEA staff. We have Terry Breeden and Donna Holmes, and they're going to talk about the SPPI 7 preschool outcomes 24-25 updates. So ladies, I'll turn it over to you.
If I unmute, it works better. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our State Performance Plan Indicator 7 data collection presentation for the 2024-25 school year. My name is Donna Holmes, and I am a State Performance Plan Specialist, and I work with the Special Population Strategic Supports and Reporting Division.
Terry Breeden. I'm the statewide early childhood special education coordinator, and I work with the Technical Assistance Division here at TEA. Our agenda today includes a review of the federal reporting requirements, an overview of State Performance Plan Indicator 7, preschool outcomes, the data collection and submission process for Indicator 7, updates to the entry and exit criteria, the data submission timeline. We have some updated resources with reminders and our contact information.
So why are LEAs required to collect and report Indicator 7 data? The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is referred to as IDEA, is a federal law that requires states to develop a state performance plan annual performance report. This is known as the SPP APR, and it reports how well the state is following the IDEA requirements, and it includes the state's plans for improvement. Indicator 7, preschool outcomes, is one of the SPP APR's 18 indicators that's reported annually to the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP. Each of these indicators has an annual target or goal. For performance indicators like 7, the Texas Continuous Improvement Steering Committee provides input to TEA, who then sets the targets. OSEP sets the targets for the compliance indicators. Based on the information provided in the SPP APR, information obtained through monitoring visits, and any other public information, OSEP issues one of 4 possible determinations for the state: meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention. Texas's current and historical determinations are posted on TEA's SPP APR webpage. For the federal fiscal year 2022, which is our most current, Texas received a determination of meets requirements. In addition, each LEA's performance against the state targets for indicators 1 through 14 are required to be publicly reported. TEA publishes these reports on the State Performance Plan Indicator Reports webpage. Indicator 7 measures the percent of preschool children aged 3 through 5 who are not in kindergarten and have individual education programs in 3 areas: positive social emotional skills, which include social relationships; the acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, which includes early language, communication, and early literacy. And then the third area is the use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs.
Texas uses the Early Childhood Technical Assistance, or ECTAS Center, Child Outcomes Summary process to summarize and report data on the 3 child outcome areas. The cost process utilizes a team-based approach. The team, which includes the child's parents and the professionals who know the child across settings and situation, utilizes multiple resources to complete the cost process and summarize the child's performance on a child outcomes summary or cost form. The cost form is not an assessment tool. It is utilized to document the team's ratings, decisions, and to provide evidence from multiple sources used to determine ratings. The team discusses the information gathered from these sources and determines a rating on a 7-point scale for each of the 3 outcomes. The cost rating process is a discussion and is not determined by a single individual. The cost process and form can be completed as part of the admission review and dismissal committee meeting. Information sources may include, but are not limited to, early childhood intervention assessments and data, assessment tools, observations, and individualized education program family interviews. The cost process provides a consistent way for teams to rate a child in the 3 outcome areas. The accuracy of these ratings and high quality outcome data are dependent upon understanding and implementing the cost process with fidelity. ECTA provides multiple training tools that are key for the cost process to produce consistent ratings. LEAs are encouraged to use these resources.
The cost process and form must be completed at 2 points in time for Indicator 7 reporting. The first cost process and form are completed when the child enters early childhood special education programs, or ECSE. This is the entry record. Then another cost process and form are completed when the child exits ECSE, and that creates the child's exit record. But just as a reminder, the child must have received at least 6 months of ECSE services to report an exit record. Now, LEAs may choose to collect outcome data more frequently for their own purposes. However, Indicator 7 is reported using this exit and entry criteria. All of the entry and exit records that are completed between July 1st and June 30th of the data collection year are submitted to TEA in the SPP7 TIL application. When a child exits ECSE and that child's exit record is entered in the TIL application, that child's progress is calculated, and then that data is included in the year's Indicator 7 submission. The criteria for an entry record has been updated this year to align with how educational environments are reported for 5-year-olds in Indicators 5 and 6. Now, Indicator 5 is the educational environment school age, which includes 5-year-olds who are enrolled in kindergarten. Indicator 6, preschool environments, includes 5-year-old children enrolled in a preschool program. So entry records are required when 3- and 4-year-old children and children who are 5 years old and enrolled in a preschool program. For those children, we want entry records when they begin receiving early childhood special education services. The exit criteria has also been updated to align with Indicator 5 and 6. The exit records will continue to be required when a student's ARD committee determines that an ECSE student is no longer eligible for or in need of special education services. Now, an exit record will be required when a child transitions from ECSE to kindergarten. And just as another reminder, the child must have that 6 months of ECSE services between the entry and exit date before they're included in Indicator 7 data. We've added additional criteria to clarify that an exit record is needed for ECSE students who transfer out of state to another school, or for any students who might turn 6 years old without transitioning to kindergarten. Now, for this 24-25 data collection, children, unless they meet another exit criteria, such as the ARD dismisses them or the student transfers out of state, LEA should complete that exit cost process and form no later than 30 days prior to the last instructional day of the school year. So for this year, that's going to include children who are in kindergarten this year, 24-25, and for children who will be transitioning to kindergarten for the 25-26 school year. Looking at our timeline, this year's TIL application opens as it usually does on April the 1st, and all children who meet the criteria must have an entry or exit record. Well, they can have an entry and or exit record. They need to have that in there by the close date of August the 8th. It's important to remember that the LEA's application must be in certified status by the close of the application on the 8th. We've got included on our timeline a reminder to complete the cost process and form no earlier than 30 days prior to the last instructional day for the students who meet the criteria. It's important to remember that LEAs are required to have at least one person with a certifier role in the application. We encourage LEAs to consider having an additional certifier in case of an emergency or if there are any personnel changes, just to ensure that the application can be in certified status by the close date. And we want to remind people that If you apply for the certifier role, the data entry agent role is included in that, so it's not needed for certifiers to have both roles.
Okay, with these changes in the SPP 7, we have some updated resources that we hope are helpful. We have SPP 7 entry and exit criteria, and we also have the frequently asked questions. Both of these resources are currently posted on the SPP 7 webpage.
And please remember these key points. The LEAs should ensure that they are using the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center's Child Outcome Summary process. ECTA's cost process and form must be used for collecting and reporting Indicator 7 data. Also, LEA should review these updated documents that Terry just mentioned that are posted on our webpage. Again, the dates for the application this year, it opens on April the 1st, 2025, and will close on August the 8th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Please remember to ensure that each LEA has at least one person with the certifier role, and it's very important to double check that the SPP 7 TIL application is in certified status by the close date. Our contact information is for programmatic questions. Is special education at tea.texas.gov, and for any questions related to data submissions in the TIL application, those should be submitted to the SPP mailbox, and that is spp@tea.texas.gov. And we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and we do encourage you to contact us if you have any questions.
Thank you, Donna. Thanks, Terry. Quick question. Somebody asked, can you guys send me the deck so we can upload it? I know it's available on your website, but just for the sake of easy accessibility, is that possible?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
and it'll be posted on the SPP 7 webpage, and we'll make sure and give you a copy, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. And then we will upload it. So you guys can find the decks from all 3 presentations today uploaded. And it'll be on the same line as January 9th's website, on the webpage. So our next webinar is January 23rd. And then if you'd like to plan ahead, on February 13th, we will also have a webinar, but those times will be adjusted to 2:30 to 3:30 instead of 2 to 3. So that is all we have for today. Thanks so much for joining us. Everybody stay safe and warm, and we'll see you on January 23rd. Thank you.